Well, welcome to my live show. It's great to have you here with me this afternoon or this morning, depending upon where you're dialing in from. So grateful for the opportunity to continue my live shows. Taking a little break. I've been busy with traveling to work with some schools and also working virtually with them during this time. But it's great to be back on the air and to be able to talk to you about my love for enrollment and marketing strategies. And so as you're joining in, let us know where you're from. We'd love to see where you are located, what school you're representing. We've got someone commenting from sunny Southern California. So that must be from my Inner Circle group on Facebook. So with that group, I can't see exactly who you are. So if you want to identify yourself by name, that would be great as well. But I've worked with many schools in sunny Southern California, and it's sunny here in St. Petersburg, Florida. We're really still in the midst of summer. It maybe has cooled off a little bit with our humidity, but we have great weather here in Florida. It's one of those picture perfect days. And perhaps I'll go over to the beach later on this afternoon and take a walk and take advantage of this location. So Terry's here from Tree of Life in Columbus, Ohio. Great to have you, Terry. And Matt's here from Pulaski Academy in Little Rock, Arkansas. Great to have you, Matt. And Matt and his team there have done a great job with their virtual admissions center. So if you haven't seen that, you need to check their website out. Alan's here from New England Innovation Academy. So Alan, where in New England are you located? I would love to just hear what part of New England you're in. Melinda's here from Northwest Christian School in North Spokane, Washington, or Spokane, I should say. So great to have you here, Melinda. And Zane is here from BG Christian Academy in Bowling Green, Ohio. So great to have you. And Doug is joining us from John Paul II Catholic High School in Greenville, North Carolina. So we've got a number of people joining in from all over. And Alan, thanks for identifying where you're located in Marlboro. So great to have you here with us during the live show. If you all haven't seen off my website on enrollmentcatalyst.com, I have a new ebook. And that new ebook is 9 Drivers of Word of Mouth. And it's an important ebook because I often talk about the importance of word of mouth as the core of your marketing strategies. And so if you haven't downloaded that, I'd highly recommend that you do that because there's some great information. I'm pretty confident that if you can focus on those 9 drivers, you're going to see positive word of mouth in your community. And so that's why I wrote that ebook. And along with that, I have a new ambassador program that I've launched. It includes recorded lessons that I've provided with my work in helping to coach schools all over. That's one of my core strategies is to help a school team launch an effective school ambassador program. Actually call it your fan program. And so in that program that I put together, there's 13 recorded lessons, materials, there's examples from other schools. I really wanted to put you on the path to success and launching your own ambassador program. A lot of times I see ambassador programs fail because what they do is they just focus internally in having the parents help with events on campus. And while that's important to help with open houses, I think it's even more important to figure out ways to be able to inspire more word of mouth to the community. And so that's what that program is all about. So if you're interested, you may want to check that out on my website. And so we have some others joining in. Sharon's here from Holy Trinity Episcopal Academy in Melbourne. Great to have you, Sharon. And just recently worked with their team there in a program that I call Recalibrate, and where we just really took a look at their enrollment and marketing effort to assess it and put together recommendations. Cindy's here from Mary Our Queen. Mary Jo is here from St. Raphael School in Rockland, Maryland. And Cindy is joining us from Omaha, Nebraska. Actually, you're clarifying where you're located from. So great to have you here. And again, if you're joining in, let us know where you are located. We definitely want to see who's on the live show today. And we have an important topic that we want to focus in on during our live show today. And so I've invited a guru of school marketing and enrollment and branding and really leadership. He has years and years of experience. And I want to bring onto the show Mr. Rob Norman. Hey, Rob.
Good morning or afternoon, wherever it is you are.
Excellent. Great to have you join us. And you're located in Pennsylvania right now, right?
Yes, we're in New Hope, Pennsylvania, probably about half an hour, 45 minutes north of Philadelphia in the eastern part of the state. And I just want to give props. Pittsburgh beat the Eagles on Sunday. Okay.
I'm a Pittsburgh Steelers fan.
I know you are. Let's get that out of the way early.
That's right. Exactly. You know, I became a Steelers fan back in the 70s. I lived in Michigan at the time, and we had the Detroit Lions. And so I had to find a good team. And the Steelers were a great team in the 70s.
Oh, they were unbelievable.
Yeah. So, Rob, tell us about your background. You've been in educational marketing a long time.
A long time. My wife, Liza, and I started Turnaround Marketing Communications in 1991. Back when marketing was not that important at schools. It was really just starting to take hold. And for about 25, 30 years, we worked almost exclusively with independent schools that whole time, doing brand development, working on admissions and development marketing, internal and external communications, and helping schools do what they do better. Over that time, we worked with well over 100 schools, very deeply, very often working on everything they did when it came to marketing. And we loved working with schools, and we've loved seeing the progression of MarCom at schools over the years. They've done a great job.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And about 7 years ago, if I remember correctly, you started InspirED School Marketers.
Yeah, that was Liza's idea. We had been going to conferences for 25 years, and there's conferences for admissions people, and there are conferences focused exclusively for development people, but we never saw conferences. While they might have a MarCom track, they didn't have a conference exclusively for MarCom. So Liza's idea was to try to create InspirED School Marketers, which is an online resource and community for anyone who does marketing or communications at a school. And that's just about everybody. And we wanted to create it as a resource, as we say, that makes your job easier. That's our whole goal, to try to help MarCom people, to give them the resources and the best practices and the information they need to make their job easier and to help them do what they do better.
Yeah, that is awesome. And I just brought up your website.
Yeah.
And so if you're not familiar with their website, their web address is inspiredsm.com. And so you can go and find that. But Rob, I wanted you to walk us through some of the key resources that you have available just right off the homepage of your website.
Sure. Well, at the very top is the Brilliance Awards. This is our fifth year doing the Brilliance Awards. And we started them because we wanted to be able to celebrate MarCom at independent schools. There are 30 categories. This year, we have 5 categories specifically for COVID marketing, ways that schools have handled communicating their response to the pandemic. So the Brilliance Awards are open. The deadline is October 28th. We really encourage everybody to enter. There are a lot of reasons to do it. It brings recognition to your school, to you, to your people. It brings pride, and it's all about celebrating the marketing that schools do.
I love that. Let me just I love
sure.
I love the Brilliance Awards because I'm able to see really what are the best of class examples that all these schools have done in all these different categories. And so it's great inspiration for what you can do in your own marketing effort.
Yeah, and I would recommend people go and they can see the winners from previous years. Like Rick said, I agree with that completely. You get to see the best and the brightest. A lot of our case studies, these by example case studies, are of Brilliance Award winners. They're really great We interview them, talk about how they did that work. You can see the work. I love the case studies, and people we find love case studies because it's an opportunity to really learn from what your peers are doing.
Excellent. I just saw a comment. It looks like this is probably from Sandy at Lakeland Christian School, because I know she's in Lakeland, Florida, just submitting 3 entries to the Brilliance Awards this morning. And you got a deadline coming up. I believe it's October 28th.
October 28th. Well, Thank you for entering and good luck.
Yeah, that's right. Wonderful.
That's great. Really love that. Podcasts. And look, my latest podcast is with Rick Newberry. I love doing podcasts. I've spoken to some just brilliant people. Our podcasts have been downloaded over 25,000 times. There's just, you can learn so much listening to the people that I've had the opportunity to talk to. Rick, we had a great conversation about word of mouth marketing. I just think, I know people like podcasts, and I think it's a great opportunity to learn from the thought leaders in our industry.
Yeah, that's wonderful that you provide that.
We have blogs on a range of topics. You can search the blogs and find out, find the topic you're interested in and see what's been written. A new service that we have is called Ask a Guru. Rick's one of our gurus. You can ask any question. I think we've got 12 or 15 gurus, people who are honestly some of the brightest people working in independent school MarCom. And you can ask any question. You can ask it to an individual guru. You can ask it to all of them. They will answer it. It's all free. Everything on the InspirED site is free to schools. You can ask those questions and the gurus will chime in. And there have been some really fascinating answers and give and take between the gurus. So I really highly recommend that. You have a question, you can answer. By the way, if you want, you can ask the question anonymously and the gurus will never contact you. That's not what it's about. It's not about selling anything.
Yeah, that's a great resource.
And one of the resources we have is we have a photographer and filmmaker guide. There are 10 photographer filmmakers who have portfolios on our site. All of them specialize in independent school work, and they really do fabulous work. So if you're looking for a photographer or someone to shoot video, I really highly recommend these people. They are real pros. That's
great. And then you have some senior partners who help support.
Who help support the site. They are supporting our work for you guys, which I think is fabulous. And we can't do it without them. And these are people who, again, are experts in independent school MarCom of one sort or another.
Well, they really allow you to be able to provide this service for free.
Yes.
For MarCom professionals around the world, really.
Exactly. So. And I would say that the Brilliance Awards, we have a sponsor, Mixed Digital. They help us run the Brilliance Awards. And at the bottom right of our website, you can see that you can sign up for what's called the Daily Jolt. I send out an e-newsletter every day with one idea, trying to share one thought, a blog or a resource or something. I would tell you, we thank the people who sponsor that. Rick is this month's sponsor for the Daily Jolt, and thank you very much for that.
Oh, you're welcome.
And the Daily Jolt is really popular. I get a lot of comments, and we have conversations with people. And again, we try to share one idea, one big idea every day, so that you can look at it and say, this is something I'm interested in, or I can move on.
Right. Very good. And so I appreciate this overview of all that you offer. A great resource, and all of you out there should be looking at the resources that Rob and Liza are providing through their website, InspirED School Marketers. Today, we want to talk about the 2020 Private School MarCom Report. And you can find that right at the top of their website, where you can download that. And that's the report that we're going to be discussing during our show today. So great great resources there just in that report. What inspired you guys to actually do this report? I think you launched it maybe 3 years ago.
Yeah, this is the third time. We did it 4 years ago. We did it in
Okay.
2017, 18, and then we skipped last year. We thought people might be getting survey fatigue. We get around 200 people, and they answer 81 questions. Typically it takes 15 or 20 minutes, but it's a lot of work for people. So we skipped last year, but this is the third year we've done it. And it came from, we had been doing InspirED for a couple of years, and we really wanted to kind of get a baseline and understand a lot, and we'll go through a lot of it, a lot of the information and resources that schools bring to bear for their marketing, for their MarCom, how they do it, what they do, how successful they are, how they view it, things that work, things that don't. And this year, I'm really glad, because this is our third year. We've been able to now look at some trends, and those trends, some of them jump out at you. Some of them, the trend is that it's not changing, and that's not so good. So there's great information, and we're just trying to understand and help schools understand. What we hope is that people can download this, use it not only for their own edification, but share it with leadership at their school, because it helps your leadership, both the head of school and your board, understand what other schools are doing.
Yeah.
Understand how they're doing it, the resources they're bringing to bear, and how they do it and do it well.
So what I've done, I've gone through the report pretty extensively. I mean, there's like, I think I remember like 50 pages or something like that to the total report, lots of key findings. And I've picked out 16 of them that I want for us to be able to talk about. And you all out there in the audience may have questions or perspectives that you want to share. Feel free to do that during the comments section right under the live show on the Facebook page. So let's just start with the first one here. I'm going to display it on the screen. 67% of MarCom professionals report to the head of school. So how significant is that to you, Rob, that the head of school is using and seeing this position as a direct report?
It's really important. I would tell you that 10 years ago, that number was probably 20%. And the reason the question was in there was driven by that we saw so many times that the director of marketing was reporting to the director of development, which was very, very common. Honestly, I never understood that, but that's how they did it. This number really hasn't changed much in the last couple of years. I would like to see it even higher. I personally think the director of MarCom has to report to the head of school. The head of school is the North Star. They are the one guiding the school, and the director of MarCom has to be in touch with the head of school on a direct basis every day. So we really hope that's going to grow. Unfortunately, over the last 4 years, it has not grown much.
Interesting. I think one of the mistakes schools make, like you started with, is having that MarCom position report to the development director. Because what often happens is then MarCom gets sucked into fundraising, auction events, annual reports. And not that those aren't important, but it takes the focus away from enrollment and the reputation of the school and the overall branding. And I think it's critical that the MarCom position has that key reporting relationship to the head of school.
I think you're absolutely right, Rick. MarCom is a school-wide, both internal and external process. So you have to be able to have the ear of the head of school, and you've got to be able to be listening to the head of school directly so that you can communicate that brand that Rick is talking about. I agree completely there, Rick.
Yeah. Let's look at the second one. 31% of the respondents do not have an official MarCom office. Does this still surprise you in 2020?
Yeah, I went and looked it up. In 2017, it was 28%, 18, 33%, 2020, 31%. I still find it really high. I would imagine that the schools that didn't have a MarCom office when the pandemic hit and the schools were closing and trying to figure out how we're going to continue the school year, the schools that didn't have a MarCom office were really behind the eight ball, because how do you clearly, consistently communicate something as critical as how you're going to react to a pandemic without a MarCom department? So I'm very surprised by this. Are you? You've got to be surprised, Rick.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, and I've worked with schools, small schools to very large schools, and it's just critical that there is a MarCom department, an office, a director, at least someone who's leading that charge for marketing and communications.
Yeah, even if you only have one person in the office, which is very common.
Yeah.
You've got to have someone through whom the communications for the school flow. That's the only way you can communicate consistently and compellingly and clearly over time.
Yeah. Let's move on to the next one. Control of the school's marketing budget. 34% from the MarCom office, which seems appropriate. Perhaps it needs to be higher. 16% combined MarCom and admissions. 11.5% head of school. Insights into that key finding from your perspective?
Yeah, this hasn't changed much over the years. And the numbers are all over the place, as you can see. MarCom 34, 16, MarCom and admissions. I'm sorry, MarCom and admissions 16, MarCom 34. It's all over the place. I think as time goes on, one of the things you can read in the survey report is that there is a real influx of MarCom professionals coming into independent schools from outside of the academic world. I would hope as that goes on, as that continues, and we get more sophisticated professionals, that the marketing budget will increasingly be controlled by MarCom. 34% seems very low to me.
Yeah, it does. Definitely. Well, and it's an important consideration, in terms of how the budget is structured. I don't think in the survey you actually ask how much money is allocated to marketing and communications in terms of strategies, or do you?
Well, we kind of ask about that. There a lot of schools don't even have marketing budget.
Right.
They kind of do what they do. I guess if they have a big project like a Ebook or something, they go and get money, and otherwise they don't have budgets very often. We've tried to assess their marketing budget and how big it is compared to the school. It's kind of hard to do apples and apples comparisons with that.
One way that I look at it is a percentage of the overall operational budget of the school. How much is allocated to MarCom strategies? I like it to be within the 1% to 3% range, and I'd be interested to just see, if that would be a benchmark, out there in the future.
I don't know about you. I'm surprised that 11.5% of the heads of school are overseeing the marketing.
Yeah, right, exactly.
I would think they got enough to do without overseeing the MarCom budget, but there you have it.
There you go. Yes, indeed. Let's look at the next one. 66% of the respondents engaged in a formal brand development process within the last 7 years. A lot of rebranding going on.
Yeah. The next part of that is really the part that surprises. The fact that people have rebranded in the last 7 years, that's great. And that they continue to look at their brand. The second part, the other question we asked was, do you have brand messages?
Yeah.
45% of the people who went through rebranding said that they did not have, or said they had brand messages, which means 55% of the people went through formal brand and didn't end up with brand messages. I don't get it. You've gone through that effort, and it's a huge effort to develop a brand. What's critical is the language that you use to consistently communicate that brand over time. Brands are built over time, and you need to be really consistent. And if you don't have brand messages, where are you? Only 45% that went through rebranding said they had brand messages. 55% did not. What are you doing with the brand? How are you communicating that consistently over time? I just don't get it. I mean, the one thing I understand, we did brand development for 20 some years. Mm-hmm. And the process is a very complicated process. And the hardest part of the process, personally, is developing the language to communicate your brand over time. That's the hardest part. That's the payoff. That is the payoff. That's why you do it. So why they would go through brand development and not have brand messages, I don't know.
A lot of times I think, people think that a brand is just, the visual image, the logo mark, the font style that's used. Maybe it's a clever tagline. But to even go further and to think about what exactly are we saying about the brand and how are we communicating those messages consistently, schools often miss that.
Yeah. Well, don't get me started on taglines.
Yeah. Well, now what is your perspective on taglines? I'm interested in that. I want you to get started. I think if you're doing brand development and a tagline organically presents itself that you think you can use consistently, that's great. But in the report, we've got, I don't know, there are probably 75 taglines, maybe more, that people said they use. I defy anybody to go and tell me what school they're from. I think my real concern, and I say this really sincerely, is that I have seen schools with a tagline use it as a crutch. And I wrote a blog, it's on our website. You need a brand, not a tagline. Tagline, 3, 4, 5 words are not going to do it. And what schools sometimes do is they'll defer to the tagline instead of doing the harder work of applying the brand to a particular place. And I think that reduces the message. It diminishes their message. A tagline's fine in the places it's used. Just don't think it's your brand, because it's not. It can't be. Right. And you're not finished with your messaging once you create that tagline. There's a lot more work to do.
That again is the danger.
Yeah.
You go through a brand development process and end up with a tagline and think your work is done. It's not done. The hard work is just beginning. You've got to have the language to describe your brand clearly. You've got to use it. And the tagline, really, you should define the places a tagline can be used.
Yeah, no, you're totally right. And so if you're out there and you're thinking about going through a rebranding process, it needs to be comprehensive. You're going to need to look at the visuals as well as the messaging, and that needs to be built in together. And so I highly recommend that when you're choosing a company, that you choose a company that has the expertise in all those areas.
Yeah, the visual brand is very important.
Sure.
Really critical. We have a lot of information in the report about visual brands. Do you have a style guide? Mm-hmm. One of the most surprising stats in the report is we asked how different departments within the school adhere to the style guide. And the two departments that are almost always the worst are the bookstore and the athletic department, the two that use the visual brand the most. They're the worst at like 20 or 25% of them said they do it well. Interestingly, the MarCom department only does it at 80%. So
a lot of work to be done in that area, certainly.
Well, schools are getting better. You just got to stay focused, keep moving.
This is an interesting finding in your survey. Only 48% said they conducted a MarCom survey.
Well, I know surveys are near and dear to your heart, Rick.
Oh, I love surveys.
And you do a great job with them. To me, this is just a missed opportunity. In today's world, everyone wants to be communicated with differently. You can get emails, you can get phone, you can get mail, you can get text. You should be communicating with your families the way they want to be communicated with. How would you know that if you didn't do a survey? You may find that no one wants to use text. Maybe you find most people want to use text and you're not using it at all. I think it's just a missed opportunity. And I think, again, you want to communicate with them the way they want to be communicated with, not the way you want to communicate with them. I'm sure you've got some feelings about this, Rick.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, there's a lot of information that you'd want to be able to collect from your primary audience. Think about, for example, every school just had a group of new families come into their school, and now they're experiencing their first few weeks. But what a great group to be able to collect information from, about the process. What about the marketing effort influenced them in their decision to select your school? How was the communication throughout admissions? What was that process like? All that is valuable information. So I'm an advocate not only of a MarCom survey, but also a new parent survey, and actually a set of surveys that a school leadership team would put in place throughout the year. The one that I recommend coming up is a Net Promoter Score survey. And I would do one of those in the fall. That's going to measure the strength of your school's word of mouth. But it all ties into MarCom, because word of mouth is obviously a key marketing strategy for us. So
yeah, you and I talked about the Net Promoter Survey in the podcast. That's a fascinating survey, gives you really actionable information. That's what surveys are all about. Learn what your people, what your communities are interested in, how they communicate, what's important to them, and then act on it.
Yeah,
it's a great opportunity, and unfortunately, little less than half say they do it.
Yeah,
it's just an opportunity, and do it every year.
You're right,
because it changes.
That's the important part is to have a regular system. So you're doing the same surveys every year, and you can benchmark your data, just like you're doing with the MarCom report.
Exactly.
You're able to compare and look at trends over time.
Yep, exactly.
Let's look at the next one. 93% of the respondents, so almost everyone who completed the survey for you, said they have a website that is newer than 5 years old. So you're seeing a lot of focus on website development, redevelopment during this process.
I think that's great. I think people, websites are critical to communicating with both internal and external families. And it does need to be updated regularly, not just the content, which I'm not sure how well schools do that, but you really need to update that content. But you need to update the functionality. You need to update the look, the flow. All of those things are critical to stay on top of.
Yeah, you're right. Definitely about that. I mean, the way I see your website, it's the front door to your school. So from my perspective, there's no more important investment than your website. And so to continue to look at not only how it looks visually, and visual appealing to your audience, but also, again, the messages. Often I find that schools leaders don't take the time to think about the messaging that needs to go into the website. What are you saying on the homepage that's going to guide the prospective parent to discover your school? Are you just rattling off a bunch of facts and stats, or are you drawing them in with compelling messages? All that's critical.
It's really important. And if you do brand development, you want your brand to lead the way on the website.
Yeah.
And be throughout the website. All of the major content areas of your website should be driven by those brand messages that you've developed in the brand development process.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So another question you asked about the website, about using a virtual tour, and this was pre-pandemic, I think, around that time.
The note is the survey was March through the end of June. It was actually July 1st we closed it. So it's in a funny spot. Now, in 2018, this percentage was 15%.
Oh, wow.
So from 18 to 2020, it went from 15 to 40. I'm going to be very interested to see what that number is next year. I'm going to guess it's going to be close to 100. Oh yeah.
Yeah, at least it should be.
It should be. It should be. And again, if you didn't have a MarCom department, I don't know how you put a virtual tour together with a branded message. So this was, I was happy to see it moving up. I think next year it'll be way, way, way higher.
And I think this is important moving forward, even in, when we get COVID-19 behind us. Hopefully that happens, sooner rather than later. But having that virtual tour, because you never know who's surfing the web and going to your website. They can do that 24/7. So that may be the encouragement that they need to actually come on campus and experience that campus visit or attend that open house.
Yeah.
So that virtual tour can be critical to this overall strategy.
And a lot of schools are using the virtual tours because they can't give in-person tours right now. So
right.
I'm sure the number's probably already higher than 40%.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So 32% said that they track their enrollment marketing and results well or very well. So that means that 68% are not doing a great job at this. Why do you think that's the case?
This just hurts. It just hurts. In today's world where you have so many different channels and methods of communication, to not track your results, to not know. I mean, everybody's all interested about how they get to their website and where they go, but you got to track results. You got to know how people are getting to you and what they find important. You have to understand what works. And here's the key. It's what works for your specific school. Every school's different. Every community is different. And how external and internal audiences interact with your school differs from school to school. You need to find a way to track those results. So you could be wasting a lot of money on a method or channel that no one uses. So I just think, again, this is a missed opportunity, and frankly, I find the number shocking.
Yeah, it really is. Great opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
another key finding: most effective marketing efforts, they were identifying out of a list, and so the 4 that rose to the top: word of mouth, parent referrals, which are actually very much related, tours, and you would hope that would be the case. Getting them on campus, they better convert, otherwise you have a problem, and then your website. So
these 4 marketing efforts have been the top 4 in all 3 surveys we did, 17, 18, and 19. I think the order changed a little bit last in 2018, and I know this plays to one of your strengths, and you and I did an entire podcast on word of mouth. Mm-hmm. Word of mouth is almost always the number 1. It's just how people find out. That's how it works. This doesn't change anything for me. I would highly recommend Rick's ebook. If you haven't downloaded it, download his ebook on word of mouth marketing, because 2 of the 4 are word of mouth, and it doesn't surprise me, and it's consistent. So those are the areas you got to be focusing on, and you need a strong brand in order to influence your word of mouth. And in Rick's ebook, he talks about how you can influence the word of mouth, make it positive, not only positive, but make it the message that you want it to be.
Yeah, you're right on. And I always point to these strategies as your core plan. So if you want to put together your marketing plan at your school, you need to make sure that it includes the word of mouth marketing strategies, what you're going to do with them on campus when you get them there, and then your website and everything that you can do online. So this next one surprises me. Only 36% have a formal retention strategy or program in place.
Surprised you think it's low.
Yeah, I do. Because, I mean, maybe it doesn't surprise you. It should be higher.
I would think it would, but I think while schools have focused on retention, they've always looked at retention. I think having a formal retention strategy, I mean, in my experience, it's a relatively new thing. Do you have a formal, like a committee or a formal strategy in place? I mean, there are schools that say retention starts before the family's first day at our school. I think it's low. I think it will grow dramatically over the next 2-3 years. Clearly, keeping a student is easier than finding a new one.
Yes.
I think the formal committee, the formal strategy is new and it will grow. I think it's critical in today's world. You really have to focus on that. What I like, and you and I kind of talked about this, is if you have a formal retention strategy, that means you're also focused on customer service.
Yes.
Well, you don't want to call them customers. That's fine. Call them whatever you like. Customer service is critical. Today's families want to know that they're being listened to, attended to. They're worried about ROI, the return on their investment for sending their child to your school. Retention helps you focus on that customer service.
It does. I mean, so important. A lot of components of that. I think retention is best led by the administrative team, the principals, the head of school. They need to be intricately involved with that retention program, because what happens with retention, it's the everyday life at the school. And so they have to be invested in focusing in on that.
Yeah, I love what you're saying. And that is, retention is everybody's job.
Yeah, it is.
And that's a mindset that does not exist at every school, especially when it extends into faculty. But it's everybody's job.
Yeah, it really is.
Everybody's got to be pulling the same direction.
I thought the question about open houses was interesting, because the view on it is mixed.
Yes.
For some who you perhaps weren't using or didn't think it was the best approach, they felt like it was ineffective and there were some better alternatives. So, I mean, I don't know what your take is on the view of open houses in school admissions strategies.
It seems over the past few years that people have been souring on them a little bit, because they take a lot of time and effort. And I don't have statistics on this, but it seems like schools are moving away, maybe doing more personal tours or group tours as opposed to open houses as a more effective way. It may be the way families are gathering information about potential schools. It's very mixed in the survey, though.
Yeah.
People are really, and the reasons that they either don't hold them or no longer hold them are varied. So I guess I wasn't shocked by that.
Yeah, my advice to schools: if you have an open house that's working, that's attracting a crowd, keep doing it. If you're trying to pull off an open house and hardly anybody's coming, don't do it. It's really that simple.
Yeah, find an alternative way to get them to see your school.
Yeah, about half are using a printed view book.
This one, if you want to see a trend, 2017, that's 4 years ago, 72% used the printed view book. 2018, 63%, and this year, 51%.
Wow,
that's a precipitous decline. View books are expensive. They are time-consuming to create. You print them; they're going to last 2, 3, 4 years. That may be part of the influence. I've been watching this one carefully, and only 51% is. 10 years ago it was 98%. So, what I'm not sure is what they're using instead. Probably the website, but the website doesn't quite do the same thing. So I'm not sure what schools are using instead of a printed view book. That would be an interesting question.
Yeah, it would be, certainly. I do think the importance of the website has really resulted in the decline of the use of the view book. At least that's what I'm certainly seeing in schools.
I would think so.
They're putting more money investing, hopefully, in a website that's probably taking resources away from what they might have been doing with the printed view book, potentially.
What I'd like to see is schools do a better job of addressing prospective families directly on their website. Having not just an admissions area, right on the home page, have a button that says prospective parents, push here, push this button, prospective students, push this button, deliver messages literally aimed at either the family, the parents, or the kids, address their concerns directly, succinctly, driven by your brand. I think schools can do a better job of that.
Yeah, you're right. Is this next one related, do you think? And are you seeing the downward trend in the use of a printed magazine with schools?
Printed magazines, not as precipitous a drop.
Oh, interesting.
2017, 69%, 2018, 60%, and now 54%. So it went from 69 to 54. Magazines are expensive. They're time consuming to write and produce and design. You've got to print them and mail them. And I think schools are finding other ways to communicate other than through a printed magazine. But Rick, this feeds right into what you recommend, and that is survey your families. Do a readership survey of your magazine and find out if they care. Find out if they read it.
Right.
Do the alums just go to the class notes in the back? What do the families find interesting? Is it topical enough? Is it current enough? I think all of these things are affecting why people aren't producing them as much. And I think a survey will really help you understand, is it important? Is it valuable? Do you get your money's worth? I mean, I know schools can spend $20,000 or $30,000 on an issue of a view book, of a magazine, plus the writing and photography and design, all of that. So I think all of those things affect why this number is going down.
Yeah. I want to remind our audience that if you have a question that you want to ask Rob, put that in your comment section. We're going to have time here at the end. I have 4 more key findings that we want to just discuss over the next few minutes. But I want to make sure we engage with your questions. So you may have a question that you want to share with us and have Rob answer that from his expertise. That'd be awesome. 75% of schools do not utilize podcasts. So in the reverse, only 25% do.
And actually, the number is a little bit higher. 66% said no, they do not use them. 21% said they don't use them, but they would like to.
Oh, okay.
So it's actually in the 80s, 87%.
Oh, gotcha.
Okay. Liza and I were talking about this. I think there are a lot of reasons people don't do it. Unfamiliarity with the process. How are we going to handle the audio editing? Where's it going to be hosted? Who's going to do it? Who's going to be the moderator? But Liza had some really good points, and this is the chance to speak directly to an audience. You could have a college counseling podcast, which both junior families and prospective families would be interested in. You can have one about admissions. your process. You could have one about pick religion at your school. How does that play out at your school? If you look at the issues that prospective families find are important to them in choosing a school, have podcasts about them.
Yeah.
If your head of school doesn't have a blog because they don't want to spend the time writing, sitting down and having them record a 20-minute podcast is great. It's just a really valuable way to do it, and it's not as difficult as people think it is.
Well, and you're an expert on it because you have done so many with InspirED school marketers. I don't know if you've done this, but you should actually write a blog on how to put a podcast in place. Give us step by step, because sometimes that's what school marketers need. Yeah. Help me understand how I'm going to do this. So
yeah, Liza and I are lucky enough. We kind of split. I mean, I get the guests and do the podcast. I'm lucky enough to have a great audio editor who very inexpensively can do editing and add my intro and outro and all those things. And Liza then handles the posting of it. It's really not that difficult. And I think it's really so many more people. It seems like it's growing. More and more people are listening to podcasts.
Yeah. And what are your thoughts about blogging? I know that was one of the questions in the survey.
Yeah. I think, again, blogging and doing it consistently, making sure that your message is clear, that the subject is interesting. I like blogs. I probably read more blogs than I listen to podcasts. I don't listen to as many podcasts. I know that both Liza and both of my children, who are 38 and 40, listen to podcasts a lot. I think blogs can be effective. But if you had to choose between a podcast and a blog, I'd probably have to tip to podcasts. I don't know. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think they both have a place because they're both delivering content. It's just in a different format. And so you have to determine what's going to be the best channel for your audience. So that's where the MarCom survey might come in place.
Sure.
You're collecting that data, and then it gives you some direction. But you have to do it on a regular basis.
Yeah, but I think that's a great point. You could ask them in your MarCom survey, if we had a podcast, would you listen to it?
Yeah, right.
And what subjects would you want to hear a podcast on? Having your head of school talk about what's going on at the school or initiatives or curriculum, having your head of school do a monthly podcast, I'd be really shocked if families didn't listen to it and make sure they didn't miss it.
Right. And then the last observation or key finding is about video. 60% said they produce 1 to 3 videos per month. 20% actually don't do any. So that's a surprise in a sense.
Yeah.
In our world today of how powerful the video is of communicating the story of the school.
It's just gotten so easy. I posted in the Daily Jolt a couple of days ago. It was actually kind of long. It was about 7.5 minutes, but it was a video produced by a school, the Lexington school, about their efforts to reopen during the pandemic. It was shot entirely on iPhone. Then they edited it. I don't know if they used GarageBand or not, but they edited it themselves. And it was that easy. Nowadays, producing a video, it doesn't have to be a fancy, professionally done video, although those can be extraordinarily effective in the right place.
Right.
And I have seen amazing videos done professionally, but I've also seen really effective videos done with an iPhone. So shoot them.
Exactly. And that's one of the benefits of your Brilliance Awards is that you're able to showcase some of the best of class videos that have been produced, whether they've been outsourced or just developed in-house. And there's room for both, I think, in the marketing communications world of a school.
The winner of the last 2 Brilliance Awards, I guess it's the enrollment video, was Macaulay School. And they did it in the house. They've got someone who's very, very good at it. I think people get a little too wound up about making it perfect. I love the idea of letting kids shoot video and using that. Let them interview their friends.
Yeah, exactly.
Show them being themselves.
And they have a lot of talent when it comes to technology. So let's maximize that.
Sure.
So, yeah, we want to make sure that if you have a question out there that you are able to put that into the comment section, and we'll be sure to engage with that. Also, if you've appreciated Rob and his insight today, as well as what Inspired School Marketers has done to help provide resources for schools, click that like button, share some love. Really would like to see that. I
do see one of the comments, somebody gave us kudos on the Daily Jolt. Thank you very much.
Yeah. That's actually from, I'm going to put that on the screen, from Matt. He's at Pulaski Academy. And so if you haven't signed up for the Daily Jolt, you need to make sure that you do that, because that's very important. A few other people joined us that I didn't recognize. Craig's here from St. Bernard Catholic Community in Omaha. And Vicky, hey Vicky, you're here from Santa Fe Christian Schools out of Solano Beach, California. Beautiful location, been there. And also from Oxbridge Academy in West Palm Beach, that's probably Meg. And Lakeland is here, probably Sandy. And Kelly's here. She actually would love to hear what other people are doing with their new parent survey. So she put her email address in there. And so if you want to connect with her at all to give her some advice, she's in Saginaw, Michigan at Nouvelle Catholic Central Schools. So again, I really appreciate you, Rob, and all that you and Liza.
I would first of all want to thank Final Sight, who was the sponsor for this year's Private School MarCom Survey Report. Their support is great. They support us so we can make the survey report free to you. Go to our website, download a copy, and I would love to hear from anyone who wanted to share thoughts about the content of the MarCom survey. I'm always interested in what you can learn and things that you would want to share about the report.
Yeah, and you have I believe it's a Facebook group for anybody who wants to be involved. So that's just another outlet for you to be able to share with school leaders. So
really some great conversations taking place in our Facebook group. People ask a question and you'll get 6, 8, 10, 15 people chiming in with how they handle a particular problem, with how they approach a particular issue. It's a chance to ask your peers how they do something, which is kind of the peer version of our Ask a Guru, where you can ask one of the experts a question. So very active Facebook group. We'd love you to join and partake and ask questions and share your thoughts.
Awesome. Well, thanks everyone for joining in. We've had a great crowd today, and I know a number of you will tune in and watch the recording. And so thank you so much. And thank you, Rob, for your insight, your perspective, and just for working on behalf of MarCom professionals out there to provide these resources that we can all benefit from. That's one thing I was thinking about this morning, is that compared to 10 years ago, there's so much more out there to help MarCom professionals, admissions directors, heads of school, than what there was, years ago. So, and you guys are a key player in that, and I really appreciate all that you do. So thanks, Rob.
Very nice of you to say, and thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it. And thanks for all you do, Rick.
Oh, you're welcome. All right, we're signing off. Thanks to everyone out there, and hope you have a great rest of your day, and we'll be back in contact on another live show in the future.
Thanks again.